I want to welcome you all to Danielson Evaluation pilot training here. So I want to thank you all for agreeing to take part in this pilot program. And I'm going to say the word pilot a lot because when something's a pilot, you expect and accept mistakes that will happen. Okay? So this is going to be a learning process this year, and we're going to be, following the guidelines that we discussed today. But it's really important that you guys speak up and talk to your administrators, talk to the people in your school that are on the PD committee, because we're going to be first listening for kind of anecdotal feedback, and then later in the year we're going to be giving out a survey, and we want to tweak things as necessary to make this as efficient and as effective as possible for teachers and administrators so that we can help kids, okay? So thank you for being part of this pilot. I will say this, I'm going to editorialize once. Whether you're a Marshall person or a Danielson person or any of these other observation models, at the end of the day, the most important thing are the relationship between administrators and teachers, okay? And administrators have to appreciate the good work that teachers do, and teachers have to be reflective about their craft and be open to feedback. And when those things happen and when those relationships are there, it doesn't matter the model, and we're going to be successful in any way. So that's the root of it. We're going to change what this looks like, the package, and we think it's going to be a really successful endeavor. But the most important thing is our relationship with you guys and appreciating all the good work that you do. So Anna Marie Russo will also be presenting with me, and Marissa Rosa. And my name is Dennis Mulrooney. I'm the new assistant superintendent. And Melissa Carucci is the principal of Knollwood. She was a teacher in a Danielson district, so she might pop in once in a while to give you some feedback and answer some questions too. All right, so you're going to see a lot of differences between Marshall and Danielson, and the most visible one are their domains. This is the Danielson framework for teaching. As opposed to 6 Marshall domains, there are 4 Danielson domains. As opposed to 60 Marshall indicators, there are 24 Danielson indicators, which makes for a slightly less hectic rubric completing process and evaluation process. It's narrowed down to some more specific ones. You got planning and preparation, the classroom environment, instruction, and then professional responsibilities. You'll see a lot of similarities, but it's in a more condensed model. When you're observed in the classroom, it's going to be domains 1, 2, and 3 only. Domain 4 will be addressed at the summative conference. And we're not going to talk too much about the summative conference today, but halfway through the year, we'll send out some more information and do maybe some communication with you so that you're prepared for that summative conference. But today we're going to focus on the observations and what to expect. On the right, and you guys all have this PowerPoint, it was sent to you. On the right are links to all of the specific rubrics we'll be using. Okay, the teacher rubric is the one we got from the Danielson website and from their corporation. And then we communicated with other districts who use Danielson to get media specialist, child study team, school counselor, nurse, and then related services like OT, PT, things like that, speech. We have, and this is so similar, it's the same thing, 4 ratings that you could get: highly effective, effective, partially effective, and ineffective. Those are tallied up for the summative score at the end of the year.
So this next piece of the rubric are look-fors for teachers. So on the left-hand side, you can see the full look-for domain here. So pretty much what the look-for is at the top part where it says component 3A, communicating with students, it gives you a summary of what is expected within that domain. So for 3A, communicating with students, expectations for learning is covered, directions and procedures is covered, explanations of content, and use of oral and written language. So within here, it gives us specific look-fors and listen-fors as an administrator coming in to observe your classroom. So specific look-fors could be clear directions and explanations that are oral and written, vivid expressive language, clear limits are set, including time factors, language is audible, teachers carefully choose words. So it goes through specific look-fors and listen-fors within each one. So if you click on the link, so it goes through every domain, starting with planning and preparation and ending with domain 4, professional responsibilities. So this was a document, we did not create it, so there are plenty of districts in the state of New Jersey that use Danielson, so this was one of the resources that we grabbed. I believe we are still in the process of creating additional look-fors for each of the other content areas. PD. Okay, so the PD committee, if you are involved with that, or if you have any feedback towards that, we will work together to create additional look-fors for our nurses, our PPS, and everyone else.
So if you're tenured, if you're non-tenured, you're going to want to know exactly what is going to happen for you. So this is the language of it, but who doesn't love a good flow chart? So we have a flow chart of the same information. So if you take a look, you'll see non-tenured on the left and tenured on the right, and then it just follows it down. So if you are a non-tenured teacher, you're going to receive 3 observations this year by 2 observers. So most likely it'll be probably your building principal and then a supervisor that works with you as well. 2 of those observations will be announced, and they will also be with a pre-conference required for non-tenured. And then that 3rd observation is unannounced, and there is no pre-conference required, but in all cases where no pre-conference is required, this is kind of important, you can always ask for one, but the administrator also has the opportunity to ask you to have a pre-conference with them. So in some cases you may not know your supervisor yet. I'll use myself as an example. So I may say, hey, let's meet so we can talk a little bit. I can get to know you before my first interaction with you is a formal observation. Okay, if you are a tenured teacher, on the right side, you're going to get 2 observations throughout the school year, spread out throughout the school year, by 1 observer. So you'll only have either your building principal or a supervisor that works with you. And that'll be that's determined by the administrators. And then one of those will be announced, and the other one will be unannounced. And in that case, the pre-conference is optional to some degree, depending on the situation. Yes, and teachers can request the pre-conference as well if they feel like they want to talk about something and get the administrator really jazzed about something they're going to do. And then everybody together will work through so you have the observation. You are really excited about it. And then right after the observation, the administrator is going to go through their script and send it to you. So we didn't talk about the script yet, but right. So we're going to talk about the script in just a minute. But basically, while they're observing, they're going to be scripting what's happening. And Anna Marie's going to talk about that a little bit more. But and then they'll send it to you. So you get a chance to reflect on what you think you did. They're going to send you the script of what they saw happening in your classroom, just the facts. And then you'll meet for that post-observation conference. So during that time, you'll be able to talk together, just like you did in Marshall, talk together about what happened, the great things that you were doing in your classroom, maybe some questions that need to be answered. And then you'll leave that conference, and then you will be sent the final scores for that. So after that, you'll get a chance to look in T-Eval and see all those final scores up there. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Besides that, there may be an opportunity for some brief walkthroughs. So you might have your principal who is not necessarily observing you this year come through, say hi, check things out in your classroom, see how you're doing, check up on you, see if you need help with anything. And during the lesson, this is an important one, the only thing that's going to be observed are domains 1 through 3 during the lesson time. So Anna Marie's going to talk a little bit more about the script. Oh, I got one more. Sorry, I got too excited about it. So this is a little bit more of that information there. The brief walkthrough visits are acceptable above and beyond. Just because someone is not observing you doesn't mean they don't want to come and see the awesome work that you're doing in your classroom. Domain 1 and 3 will be observed, like I said. The pre-conferences can happen. And then this is a really interesting one, which I love. Evidence consists of notes from the script, quotes from the lesson, and really the general evidence is going to come from the preponderance of evidence. So if you have this really great question thing happening often, that's where you're going to see that evidence build up. But if it's just a tiny little snippet, it's going to make a difference in what happens at the end for your score. The post-conference is going to be held within 5 days of the observation, and the observation should be submitted within T-Eval within 10 days of the observed lesson. So, yeah, jump in.
But I do want to take a moment to address the one part, because when we had the PD conference meeting last week, there was one question that I think is probably on your mind. So that post-conference is purely about the script and what was seen and the reflection and questions and suggestions and things like that. We're not going to address the rubric at that post-conference. And if you remember back to when we initiated Marshall, I think if we addressed the rubric at the post-conference, That's all it's going to be about. Okay? So you'll have your discussion. The teacher will fill out the rubric and then submit that to you. If those scores don't jive with you, okay, if that doesn't make sense, you disagree, so a couple of things you can and should do. One, email the administrator, contact the administrator and say, could we talk about these things? And if you can sort it out over email with some new evidence or some new insight, that could happen. You know, the scores could potentially change. You could ask for a second meeting if you really want to talk about it even more as a follow-up, which is the same as you would with a summative conference. And then if the scores don't change and you're still in disagreement, there's that response section in T-Eval as well. But that was a question from the PD committee. You know, why aren't we getting into the rubric at the post-conference? And to answer your question, that is why, if you were thinking it. So I'm going to pull up T-Eval to show you what this looks like in T-Eval, and it's very, very similar. So give me 1 second, I'll put this down. I'm going to go to mini observation. I'm going to type in Vesper, and we're going to pull there, new observation. So you will see it looks exactly the same in T-Eval. Okay, teacher, the section of part of class, the name of the class, the grade level, the date and the time. This is where it looks different. Okay. The 3 domains we'll be observing are listed here, 1, 2, and 3. This one will be erased. Communicating with the tech department to make that happen. So if a teacher, you know, if I go in here and I score something, I click on the domain, just like in the summative. And at the bottom of each domain, there are domain notes where I will type the evidence that speaks to the score that you were given. Okay? Same thing for the next domain. Click, evidence, not scored. More evidence speaking to the specific rubric points. Okay? At the bottom of the page, there's going to be a part for the script. I can't type. And then feedback. Okay? So it looks like Marshall, but we're adding the domains and the specific evidence pertaining to those domains. Any questions? All right. Next.
So as Dennis was talking about scoring, so as we go in as administrators and observe you, if we don't see the evidence of something, we cannot score it. So often on the rubric, you may find in T-Eval that a lot of your items are not scored. They are not scored because we don't have evidence to provide a score with. So in T-Eval, if we just go back for 1 second, it did say here, observation score. So I would say don't really focus too much on that simply because there could be items that are just not observable within that time. All right, so the script. So this is an example of a script. So Miss Dolphin, this is a grade 3 math lesson. Keep in mind that every person writes differently. So this script is a very long script. There could be different scripts with each administrator. It could be bulleted, it could be brief, it could be longer, but this is a sample script. So for this specific administrator, for this math lesson, she did have a co-teacher in the classroom, and it was time-stamped. Some administrators may use the timestamp, some administrators may not. But it does say, you know, teacher asks a question, does anyone have anything different? And then if a student responds, it might say like S: with a student response. Keep in mind when we go in, it's going to be very difficult to quote every single thing you say. So it might be like a brief synopsis of exactly what is going on in your classroom. So it might say something like, you know, at 12:25, you know, the teacher started the lesson on multiplying 2-digit numbers. And then, you know, at 12:35, you know, the teacher ended the mini lesson and started her math stations. So it might be something like that. It may include quotes, it may not. But this is just a sample script of what it could look like. So this first part was a 20-minute lesson. If you were to extend it, the part in the blue extends out to a 40-minute long observation. So now from here, what will happen is this entire script will be sent to you. So the way that I think I'm going to do it, I start my observations next week. When I send you your post-conference invite, this is just me, I'm going to put the script within my Google Calendar invite. So the administrator can send it via Google Docs, via Google Sheets, via PowerPoint if they wanted to, via calendar invite. However, you're going to get that script. You will get it prior to your post-conference. And then from there, you can take a look at the script. If you have any questions regarding the script, you can certainly bring that up. And then from there, we're going to take the script and further evaluate it within the rubric. So for planning and preparation, I believe we did not, within the 20-minute lesson, see anything. So if that is the case, the administrator might write not applicable. So nothing would be scored, and as Dennis showed you in T-Eval, it'll just be not observed within here. For Domain 2, so there were a few things in Domain 2 that Ms. Dolphin was scored on. So here, managing classroom procedures, she scored a proficient, so a score of a 3. So that is marked in. For 2D, managing student behaviors, she scored a 3. So within here, we will then put the evidence on how we saw it. So for 2C, students transitioned smoothly and quickly to their desks. For 2D, standards of conduct were established as no off-task behaviors were observed. So within here, we're going to provide our evidence as a breakdown for each indicator that we see. So for Domain 3, it's the same thing within the scoring. So we're going to go through, Domains 1, 2, and 3 as we score throughout your lesson. But please keep in mind, don't be upset by the observation score simply because it could be lower because we didn't observe it. So for here, we have a lot going on for 3A, 3B, 3C, 3D, and 3E. So each of these, and within here, as Marissa had stated, with the preponderance of evidence, if you have a lot of evidence saying that you're distinguished, you would see the patterns of that in there, as you saw the patterns with that rubric activity that Dennis completed with you. If we see one portion of it that is unsatisfactory or vice versa, not proficient, it will be noted somewhere within here, within the preponderance of evidence. And then at the ends of here, you will see a feedback. So this is going to include areas of strength where you excelled within the lesson and constructive feedback and recommendations. And then maybe a little tidbit of, thank you for your hard work and all of that. Also, at the end of every T-Eval will be optional notes, and within those optional notes, you'll be able to see and keep track of the entire script if you had further questions following the original post-conference. All right,
I'm gonna open up the FAQ right now, and we'll run through it. And so there's a Google form. I should stop myself. There's a Google form if you want to ask a question in private. You don't want to raise your hand. So please use that Google form to ask any questions, and any questions that we have, we'll answer and add to the FAQ.
So at the end of here, with the look-fors, you will see Domain 4. So, for example, reflecting on teaching. So it talks about what are we looking for as administrators for Domain 4. So pieces of evidence could include professional reflective conversations. So are you taking notes with your colleagues and conversations that you're having regarding a science lesson that may have flopped? Are you taking notes within Genesis? Could that be something where you're reflecting on your teaching there? Maintaining accurate records. This could be portfolios. This could be Genesis gradebook. This could be logs of students are collecting logs for their scores for math tests. It could be a variety of guided reading records. It could be a variety of different things. So what we can do as a PD committee, maybe we can tweak this to reflect more of what we do within Parsippany. We can certainly work on that for a score of a 3 or 4.
Probably just like also you're keeping your PD hours all year long, you're going to kind of want to just have that maybe a running log of what you've attended, where you've gone. That's all part of your professional responsibilities, and I think that ties in well to it. Yeah.
For Domain 4, it's kind of, we tell kids in high school all the time to keep track of your community service hours, keep track of your job, and so that when you're ready to put together this resume, you have that information. So I would start to just think about, how did you prepare for back to school night? You put together a presentation and communicated with the parents and all that stuff. So as you go through the year, just kind of keep this one document and continue to add things to it. I know this year's a little different, but at the high it would have been, you attended the football game, you you went to a committee meeting. You went to these different committee meetings. Yeah, you have a school newsletter that you send out to your class, and you communicate with with the parents. You send emails. You keep a log of those emails to the parents. So all those professional things, I would just set up your own Google Doc, Google Sheet, and as you do those things, you just kind of document them as the year goes by, so that you kind of have that.
And keep in mind the difference between distinguished and proficient. As you're planning throughout the year, distinguished is anything student-centered. So for example, if students are keeping a log of their reading level, or a log of their math scores, or a log of skills that they need to practice, that's automatically a 4. If the teacher is keeping a log, that's automatically a 3. So whatever you can do in the classroom to make it more student-centered, that is where that 4 distinguished comes into play. So as you're planning throughout the year, maybe think about, for conferences, are students running the conferences? Things like that. Could there be a possibility of those opportunities while you're planning throughout the entire year? Or setting goals, yep.
That was a great one. Thank you. And I'm going to get to some of the stuff out sooner, I promise. Any other questions? Don't be shy. All right. Really important that we get your feedback throughout the course of the year, because we want to see how this works. We want to see how we can make it better. We may decide by the end of the year that we want to address the rubric in the post-conference. That may be a result of this. And in your previous district, did you? In your previous district, was the rubric part of the conference? Nope. Okay, just the end of the year? Okay. So don't be shy about feedback, any ideas, and we'll take care of that in the PD committee. I want to thank you for coming here on a Friday, all right? And I want you to have a great weekend.